Welcome, everybody, to Soul Inspired Reflections. Ascension, a humble awakening of the heart, with me, your host, Gina Lobito. The soul can take on many expressions that bring you into harmony and resonance with your higher self. Feel an aura of love that will envelope you and infuse your being. You'll find that even the chaos of your world makes sense and has meaning and purpose. Your dreams are so powerful, and as you become more sensitive to them, you can learn how to identify new energies and how they are communicating with you. In body, in power, in soul. Activate the spirit within you in this conversation of power, faith, grace, love, and forgiveness. Make a choice, be inspired, and take action. Soul Inspired Reflections starts now.
I get to take this journey with the most amazing Gina Lobito. And the reason I say I get to take this journey, because I was just talking to somebody earlier today, and I realized that I have been absolutely engaged with so many people since I started doing this, that I become wiser and smarter every show. And that's what I'm about to talk to you about, because Soul Inspired Reflections, Gina Lobito, is all about helping us realize, first of all, where we are in the middle of our stuff, our lives, where we want to go, and then how do we get there? You know, today's show in particular, when I think about it, it's looking at becoming an anchor for light and learning to hold sacred space. And I've had so many conversations in the past 24 hours, not Gina, not using those words, but trying to hold that space for people that are on the ledge of different things. Now, if you know anything about Gina and you know that she is right there for you and you can work with her, whether that is soul inspired living, whether it's the body work, she's a body work expert, coaching, workshops, but what she has created here in this show and her self-mastery that she's bringing forward, this is her credo. She believes every soul has a unique sound and purpose to be discovered and can be developed. This is what she helps all of us with. Now, if you're experiencing doubt, if you're experiencing guilt, if you're experiencing shame, if you don't believe you are that amazing vessel, today's show, we're going to tell you and get right up in your face about it, is you are. I just got off a call and I realized how so many of us, and Gina, I think we're women, I think mostly women.
Yeah.
We don't believe that we are all about that, do we?
Women have a very challenging time with stepping into that and stepping into our innate power. And I think a lot of your shows also cover that in various ways through different language, right? Because we are in the midst, and I say we collectively in the world are in the midst of waking that feminine energy up, not just within women, but also within men too, to bring that into harmony. But women, the people, the souls that hold the physical body of women have bared a really huge role on their shoulders in being part of that process of resurrecting that divine feminine energy and freeing ourselves from the limitations that have been placed on us, whether we've listened to others or whether it's social norms we've accepted. It's in our DNA, it's in our ancestry, right? So this is also part of where we learn to anchor that light to free ourselves of those past patterns as well and bring forth a deeper healing that is very palpable. Sometimes it's unseen, but then it becomes seen as we go through that inner healing of release, of connection to all that is, and that we have that power to transmute it, transfigure it, and become that more harmonious masculine and feminine energies that live within all of us. And how do we bring that forth?
Yeah. look, I want to just really get down to this, because not only is your message powerful, but what I want to say to you, I wasn't kidding when I talked to you about a body expert. What I find is when I meet people that are really excelling, that really know how to talk about ascension, that really know how to talk about how the body is that anchor for things, it's because you have a profession and a career. Even if you may not be doing it now, you have had that career. You understand things about the body now. When you take that profession and career and you couple that with a continuous spiritual up-leveling,
yes,
that's why you're Gina. That's why we're talking to you today. But I want to talk to you about this idea of the body and the energy in the body. and I have to tell you, something real and visceral happened to me in the past 2 days, to the point where Linda said to me, Linda, you know Linda, right?
yes.
We've been friends since 72. She knows every wart that I have in my consciousness. But yesterday she said, Patty, Jessica and I want to call. She said, Patty, I just got to tell you how proud I am of you. And she said, you know, there have been times when you were willing to compromise because you're trying to juggle keeping a business going. And here's what she said, and this is so important to today and talking about the body. When we start to compromise, when we ask our soul to compromise, in the spirit of acquisition in the outside world. What do I mean by the spirit of acquisition in the outside world? I'm going to tell you what I mean. What I mean by the spirit of acquisition in the outside world: a house, a job, money, clients, right? It doesn't matter. Our body just tries to tell us. And Linda was commenting because I wasn't willing to agree to doing something contractually just for a client. And I think that we're at a point now, we're at a crossroads. How does our body tell us? How does our body help anchor to the light? Now, I will tell you, for me, my body would not let go of me in the process until I came to the point of that decision that felt light.
Yeah.
Upset stomach, dizziness, pain in my butt. I don't know. But talk about the understanding of the body and the physicality that could be the guiding light to all of our ascension.
Yeah. Happy to try to bridge that for us here, because I was doing a little bit of reading too on just a basic understanding of when the nervous system begins to develop. And I found it interesting that it's in that third week that we begin in utero, that doctors and scientists can see the nervous system beginning to develop before the heart. And then as I sat there with that information, and I would realize, like, wow, that is preparing our body how to process stimulus in communication, not just from our external world, but also our internal world and our direct connection to God, our God spark. And it made a little bit more sense of, oh, no wonder we have the fontanelle, right? We have the bone structure that's not fully developed yet, right? Because we are already in utero being connected to our divine spark, and it goes all the way down into our solar plexus, and they call it like the neurotube or something. Forgive me if I get the terminologies wrong. That's not my area of expertise. So
yeah, but it's not mine either.
But people can look it up, and people are familiar with the basics of nervous system because it's talked about all the time now. But that is our pathway. That's our energetic pathway to communication. And this is what our body, and what I feel we collectively are remembering, how to use the communication of our body through these external experiences while having an internal response to navigate our experiences. So a lot of people are talking about trauma, PTSD. You're describing, oh, I'm feeling it in my stomach. There's that resistance. Stomach, our gut center, our intuition. That's where our intuition sits. Our divine connection is there. And science is catching up with all of this, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we pay attention to that contraction, because even in the word, like you said, contract, right? Contraction. It's all of a sudden you're stuck in something. When you feel your body contract, I know whenever I feel my body contract, it's telling me something.
Yeah.
Do I move forward? Do I wait to relax and allow stuff to process out? Because it's not always an instant answer. There's been times where I've had to stop, where I felt like quitting the current office I'm in for something that occurred, and I had to pause. I had to pause because I was feeling contracted. I had to stay in my power about what my services are. And I will not give up energy work, because that is in all of us. And I had to, it wasn't defend myself necessarily, but I had to come back to address something immediately before it became something bigger within myself. Yeah. And that I had to recognize, like, what that may be for someone else is a different experience, right? But I had to recognize, like, wait, what's this here for me if I say nothing? Yeah. And I can no longer say nothing to who I am, and I can no longer compromise who I am in this life, whether I'm doing body work, whether I'm with a friend, whether even if I stayed in law enforcement, because that had a huge piece too on when it was time to leave and anchor light somewhere else, that I could really show up more fully, because that had a place. It all has a place. So listening to that contraction in your body, just as much as listening to the expansion when you release into it, as you finish processing whatever the situation is within you and in front of you, because they're different energies. And the more you practice communicating with your body and what's really here for me, for you, right? Not blaming the external, but being thankful for, oh, this external experience happened. It triggered my internal responses. But what is it really for me on a soul level, right? On a power level, because we're talking about power here and energy and how we start using it for the highest good of yourself, but also the situation, right? Because if I just up and left and quit based on that and said nothing or did nothing or didn't reconcile it within myself, that wouldn't have served me in any way. I would have just been running away from something deeper. Yeah. Right.
I love that we're talking about this. I love this because you nailed it. You see, here's what I love about the way you approach this and the way you help people. You can take us on a journey to another galaxy. Some of the things you say, I have to go back after the show and I have to re-listen to it to understand how deep they are. But what you're talking about here, and that example you gave is so beautiful because it taps into our soul essence, not only of who we are, but who we're meant to be. Then it taps into the level of confidence we have in that person. Then it taps into the next level of how we're going to process that and how we're going to react and respond to it. And then the last thing you said to me and to the audience here is it has the ability to ignite personal power.
Yes.
Let's talk the personal power thing.
Yeah, personal power.
Gina, right? A lot of times, and I know this, you've run into this and I've run into it, where you're talking with people and we know that ascension, our soul, our hearts, we know that it is a fundamental aspect of personal power, but a lot of people don't. You know, Herbert Benson in his pivotal book, I was given that book. That's an interview I wish I would have done before he passed. The man was a genius. He was so against the curve. He talked about what you just said, all the connections in the brain. But see, there are those of us that weren't always well schooled. I couldn't always understand things like other people. But his description of all the connections in the brain and the way he laid that out points to what you're talking about. Can we talk about personal power and why we feel that we cannot achieve oneness at the sacrifice unless we sacrifice personal power?
That's a good question. There's so much in that. And it reminds me of this gentleman, Michael, I once met, and he has passed a couple of years ago. And he used to run this place called Angel Valley, and he called it the New Lemuria out in Sedona, Arizona. It still exists. It's under a new ownership, but I don't know if it's open just yet because of the transition. However, if it's open, go visit. It's a powerful spot. He said to our group, he's like, the universe looks at the earth and the human beings on here as masters of limitation. Masters of limitation. And to me, when I hear that now,
Wow.
Yeah, allow that sit. We are masters of limitation. And we're remembering how to not be that, how to be masters of creation and limitlessness and oneness. And that involves
Hey, I want to create a new word for you.
Okay.
I told you I was studied as a kid, and I'm learning different. When you said that, and you said we are masters of limitation, boy, did you nail that. So many words. But what if we were masters of unlimitation? That's like not even a word. But isn't that where you're taking us to help us now?
Yes.
Because if we're masters of limitation, why can't we be masters of unlimitation?
And we can. And that's the polarity, right? We're experiencing the polarity of limitations, and also what it feels like to give the illusion of giving our power away, right? Because that's is an illusion, because we're not being in our full authentic power when we're living in fear and moving things like someone like government needs to provide for me. This needs to happen for me. Like everything's external, right? I'm going to blame Republicans and Democrats. I'm going to blame this and that. It's like, no, we have to move away from that when we recognize even on an individual level, like, wait, where am I not taking responsibility and accountability for where I am right now? Right? Just the smallest choice you can step into your personal power, right? And that could just even be a mother saying no to overextending herself, right? Creating a new boundary for yourself is beginning to step into your personal power. But what I'd like to take us to is when we truly start tapping into our resource that gives us the vitality that all of us want, which is energy. We have access to our divine energy since conception, before our soul decides to even come down, we have access to it, right? Excuse me. So when people begin to connect with their higher self or their I am presence, whatever word you want to call it, that taps in to your divine energy source and tapping into your nomad or your God spark, because we are all individual aspects of one energy. And some traditions refer to it as your God spark. Okay.
Yep.
So when we could just tap into that little bit of energy, because it's powerful enough, you begin to change internally. And you begin to remember, like if you look up the divine chart, okay, for all of you out there, look up the divine chart for yourself, and it will depict concentric rings that are above us that we connect to. And those are associated to our 7 energy centers. And let me see if I can even find I do have an image of it here. But that holds codes and information for us as you step into your divine path, your soul awakening. I'll set it up here so people have an idea of how it's depicted. And then you can, on your own, go research it, because there's many different people that talk about it, and you got to trust the resource. I always love Elizabeth Clare Prophet. I found her teachings are still extremely relevant today, even though the energies have changed. But these primary energy centers, which many has started with the 7 chakras, more are open to us. And that means more colors are open to us, because going back to where we started in utero, all those synapses and neurons and glia, all those in those first few weeks. And I find it interesting that it goes in like this 3, 6, 9 of creation. And that reminds me of Tesla. I'm like, oh, we are encoded to create and expand. It starts to create these pathways of communication, sound, vibration, color, sensory perception, awareness of even just your physical spatial awareness. But how might we take that deeper into our personal power as you are becoming more sensitive to your sensory abilities, right? So when you start to connect to your I am presence, you're connecting to those concentric rings that have your personal God spark coding for your soul, that you're bringing in your lessons for your soul to expand. But also when you expand and learn your lessons, you're doing it for the collective as well, because you're part of the greater God or energy source. It also will bring in your karmic patterns that you get to release and heal. And that's not just the negative polarity, it's also the positive polarity, because we can be too extreme in either direction.
Yeah.
But when we can be in that middle way and connect, you're going to come into a personal power that you have not experienced before in this lifetime. But you can tap into those concentric rings and the Chohans or ascended masters that assist you in remembering, and you'll build your skill set. You can tap into your soul wisdom and be like, I've done this before. Soul, show me the wisdom I've already gained and what's already unlocked. You're going to ignite that within you by practicing connecting. And recently I've been connecting with Om. AUM. It's 3 seed syllables together, because it's the ah portion connects you to creation, that you are created. Ah, and that's one of the first things a sound a baby makes is that cry, and it's ah. It's ah, it's open, it's ah. When people you know are going to decide to have families or you're having sex, what's the sounds you make? It's organic.
Yeah.
Because that is an act of creation when we unite that way, or when we're watching someone do something like a dancer leap so high, what do we say? Ah, oh yeah, we are lit up because we're watching that divine creation come through that person. We're watching it, and it inspires all of us. And then the that unity, but also that movement. So it has power when we want to create, then we have to have the thoughts that come in, and then the movement to it, the action. And then the Even just do it with me. How does that feel, Dr. Pat? Do it with me, just the and you'll feel the vibration.
And we do it all the time. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I realize, oh my gosh, we live our lives with the expression of each of those sounds, if I may say.
We do.
And we do it and we don't know we're doing it. I love the example you gave of the baby, but also I was really struck by, I play a sport. And I'm really struck by, I was just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I think I do that like a million times.
Yeah.
Right. And what the message really is to all of us today, in this respect, what I hear you saying is, boy, we get our forgetter on. And when we go back to what you said earlier about the body and the light, when we get blocked, and I like using the word blocked because everybody knows what that means. It's not very scientific and it certainly isn't very spiritual.
But we know
it is a word, we know it. And there's a way to move away from that by what you just talked about. We go, we just do it. I mean, we're talking to people and we go, right?
Yeah.
But what if we understand the power of the intention of doing it?
When we can start you become limitless, less limited, right? You can tap into the storehouse of all that is and bring forth what you truly are wanting, right? Because sometimes that law of opposite kicks in, and then we experience the polarity, and then you're just like, I'm enough with that. I want this.
Yeah.
I want to just give me this now, because I know what that is, and I'm done with that. I'm done with this duality experience, right? I want to be in the oneness, but I want to be able to transmute and transfigure. There's so many things to this, right? And part of listening to those sounds of right? It's just, it creates a trinity. And I just saw it in two different references. One was an old book about the embryo by a clairvoyant. I don't have it in front of me now, but anyhow, he refers to this as the Trinity, and he's like, and he used this language I hadn't heard before, and he said the preserver in one of it, and of course Brahma, I've heard that, and then and transformer, which, as you know, I'm very much connected to be the transformer.
Yeah.
And that's connected to the sound, right? So as we remember that we are creators, we are a creator, God, not from the ego or misqualified ego, because we do need our ego. It just have to repurpose it, Then that unity, that preserver, that, to me, also that sacred space holding of each other, that we're going through this individually and together. Yeah. All the time. And then that transformer, how do I be in that oneness and that transformer and be in all that is and let go to let in? Yeah. And it reminds me of the monks that in the impermanence, when they create those little sand mandalas, right? And then with one fell swoop, because we need the beginning and the end. Yeah. And then it keeps us in this perpetual cycle of
it's such a great example too, though, Gina, isn't it? Of disattachment. And what I mean by that is, it's for me, it's one of the most incredible representation of when I'm trying to talk to somebody of a detach with love, right? That is one of the examples I use, because I know, as someone who practices art from now and again, and I appreciate it, I've had to create a mandala like that so that I could learn the art of detaching with love. But that leads to something we're going to talk about when we come back from break. And it's tied to everything we've said. It's tied to the sound. One of the most difficult things that I think people, not everybody, but some people really have a hard time with is really embracing the I am presence. Even embracing a saying like, I am love, I am powerful, I am confident. It's so difficult for people to feel good enough about themselves and to go back to that, what you said earlier about personal power, to even utter those words. When we come back, we're going to talk about it. But before we go, please tell people how they can find out about you, how they can work with you, how they can work with you as a coach, many things you do. What's the best way for folks to do
the best way is for you to go to my website at soulinspiredreflections.com and you send me an email. Also get on my email list, because that's when new things come. That's the way you're going to get notified. And occasionally I'll do a blog from time to time, and that's also how you'll get information that way as well. And with those blogs also oftentimes are exercises within it that are associated. But that best way is shoot me an email, schedule a 30-minute consult, and we can discuss what your needs are. And I can work with people remotely and in person if you're local to the San Francisco Bay Area. And let's start with a conversation.
Yeah, let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how we connect with the body, with the light, and how that transmutes itself into the strength of your conviction of who you truly are in the I am presence. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Soul Inspired Reflections with Gina Lobito. This is her show. And today, this is such an important dialogue, right? I mean, many of you are still glued to your TV, wondering, who's winning, who's not winning. And, sometimes we can forget that we do not, or we won't remember, we have the power to become that anchor for light and learning, especially when we're, in that space to hold sacred space. Because see, that's the key. Gina, before we talk about the I am presence, which was extremely difficult for me to really learn, again, please give out your website for people to connect with you.
Yeah, so website is soulinspiredreflections.com. And sign up for my email list and shoot me a email, and I'll be happy to talk, and we can schedule a free session for free consult.
So look, I am one of these people that it got indoctrinated as I took this journey to do the show, but I wasn't even familiar with the power of what we're about to talk about now. And I would suspect that I'm pretty much like a lot of people that can step into the I am power and the I am presence on certain things.
Yes.
Like I can easily say to you, I am a really good table tennis player, and not even blink. But when it comes to personal power, we're less skilled, trained, immersed in how to say, I am a really powerful person.
Yeah.
This is really the crux of what really catches us from moving ahead, doesn't it?
Our limited beliefs.
Yeah.
Our limited beliefs hold us all back.
Yeah.
And you brought up something I feel that's really powerful for all of us. Let's take something that we're already good at, that we don't have to think about doing, right? Because you were talking about what your sport, and then I thought, gosh, that's when I was fully connected to my I am presence. Whenever I was performing athletics, I could do anything on that soccer field. I anticipated even softball plays that, like, literally you could not normally have plays achieved that way. It's not every even elite athletes, not everyone. There's always going to be that small few that stand out above even the elite. They're like the elite of the elite, right? And it's because when you are so tapped in to your I am presence of all that is your talents, all of a sudden what happens, it's like you have this ability to see everything unfold, no matter what the choice is that's actively occurring in the physical realm, because you're already seeing it, because all time exists everywhere. There's no construct of time when you're in the I am presence. That's a construct we've created here, and we're all stepping out of.
It's a human concept.
Yeah. But when you're in something, start with something you already do well, whether it's writing, whether it's you train animals, and feel what that flow is like. Because you're in your I am presence, and you're in this physical earth, grounded, focused, and nothing is distracting you.
Yeah.
And so when I was on that soccer field, I could have 3 players on me moving around, and I would do all sorts of stuff and still get the pass off or recover the ball. And I couldn't tell you how I did it, because it didn't matter how much I trained.
No.
There, all of a sudden something else takes over, where you can't train for those things. Something else takes over. So that's where I invite you, the listeners, and even myself and you, Dr. Pat, when you're feeling moments of stuckness, go to where you know what it feels like to be fully connected.
Yeah. I love that we're talking about this. It brought up something really interesting the other day. And when people ask me, how did you get started at this? Blah, blah, blah. What did you do? I say, first of all, I've been doing it 20 years. And then I say, I have to tell you, from the minute I got behind a microphone, it felt like home. It felt like breathing.
Yeah.
And there's no rational explanation of that. I didn't have a career in it. But it really wasn't the mic, was it?
It's no, you found your, whatever your codes are within yourself, you found this vehicle so you can be that full expression of what you're meant to do, right? And you're meant to be holding these ability to talk out loud, to reach people, to educate, to connect people together. You can't do that one-on-one sitting in an office. It happens, but on a really limited scale.
Right.
But now, like, I just talked to someone else that I had some support with for things, and she said that was for her. She was someone that came in that needed to speak. And even though she originally started her healing journey through body work, she couldn't talk. She couldn't educate people through that modality in the same way, right? A lot of times people want to be quiet and this and that. And when I'm working with people, it's kind of a mixture of both, because I want people to talk, because we're moving stuff out of the emotional and mental body, and in turn releasing stuff in the physical. But I want to bring this back to our original question, and the power, the limitless power that we have with our I am presence and stepping into our personal power. So remember something you're good at and what that feels like in your body, because that's going to tell you, like, oh, that's what it feels like when I'm connected, and then apply that to wherever you feel limits are, and be like, wait, where? And that's going to show you where your work, I don't even like saying that, but where your work is, because then you got to reconcile something within yourself.
Yeah.
That's deeper than the situation at hand, because that's just the players involved to help you achieve your lesson.
I love that you're talking about it that way, because the way you just described that is depersonalizing it. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is talking about it as if it's an energy, where, sometimes we personalize so much. Don Miguel said it, Four Agreements, one of the best books ever. Yeah. One of the few books that nobody can actually do the Four Agreements, right? He must have known that. Think about it, right? He must have known that, that's going to be a lifelong journey. But what you talked about is really an energetic aspect of who we are that turns into an actual behavior.
Yes, because we are energy. We are energy. And that's where our vitality comes from. That's where all our resource comes from, is when we tap into the energy of all that is, into our I am presence. And we have to have the ability to clear our own blocks that we already came in with the agreements that we were going to walk through. Okay. And that's where that transmutation and transfiguration really comes in. That violet flame, just that tool alone can come in to really support us, or support you, support the planet on transmuting and transfiguring and returning things back into light, with that ability through the I am presence to see the bigger picture, and then come back down into your, whatever your situation is. Kind of like me deciding if I was going to leave that office or not. And it'd be like, no, I had to come out of it and then go, nope, that would not be the highest good for all of us and for myself.
Yeah.
But and that can take practice, but that all happened within say 5 minutes, right? And that's pretty quick.
It is quick. And, one of the things I want to talk about, I want to go ahead and keep going with this, is that sometimes we're talking about decision points in our lives. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I made a statement not too long ago where I said, almost every thought that I'm having is focusing around a decision. And, somebody said to me, that's not even possible. How is that possible? And I say, well, think about it. Even if you're thinking about a job, a career, another person, ask yourself, why am I ruminating over this? Mm-hmm. What is the hook that's here for me? Mm-hmm. And there's underneath there's something that we agonize with. But what we're talking about becoming, right, an anchor for light and the violet flame, mm-hmm. we're still talking about the integration of it all, body, mind, spirit. We're talking about all of those, because they all have to work together in order to do that. But one of the things you just said that I want to talk to you more about is the example you gave. we've seen it, and it's not only sports. I've seen people in a job, in a career, move through that job like they're gliding on clouds.
Yeah.
And when they're asked, or when people are asked questions about how they did something, or even in a sport, clearly I was not the best softball player. Clearly I wasn't. But I was the one that made the impossible. And nobody could figure that out, because there's this idea that you have to be so tactically fundamental in life and have no subjective, intuitive nature to you, and which is so far from anyone that has ever done anything that is so noteworthy we remember who they are. I don't care if you're Einstein, it doesn't matter who you are. But isn't that what we're talking about, is to get that support in consciousness where we recognize our earthly value as well as our esoteric value?
Yeah, definitely. We are in that space right now. And then it's also this transition from the esoteric to exoteric, that we have a direct connection to our divinity. We no longer have to go to some outside mediator like people used to go to. This is why our churches are changing, right? Because those running them also need to change the language that bridges, and to empower those that are coming, to empower them to connect with their higher self, with the Om, with the, whatever modality you want to bring into it, because there's many. Om is more through the Hindu traditions. However, you see it through everything, right? And
I get asked about this necklace I wear, and it's from Sarah Main, Damayanti. Sarah is a Sanskrit expert. She teaches it, the purest form of Sanskrit. I mean, she has done what do you call it, inscriptions and wedding bands of some of the top celebrities, because of the nature of how well she understands that. And people say that when they look at this,
because it's holding the energy and the vibration.
It's holding the energy. And they look at it and they thought, oh, that's not what I thought it was. And I don't know if they're talking about my little energy bouncer or the other thing. And what's interesting is they say, what religion is that from?
It's no religion.
It's not a religion. And I say, it's not a religion, it's Sanskrit. And what it means is it's the foundational pieces of the meaning of Sanskrit values. And this one happens to be resilience.
And this is how we build resilience, through this connection.
That's it.
It's how we build our resilience. It's how we build our vitality. It's like breatharians. All they do is breathe, right? Like, I think there's a group in Germany, they're called breatharians, because they're constantly connecting to their life force energy and higher self. But bringing that back into our physicality. All someone needs to do to begin this journey and want to connect more with that is breathe. And if you add in the Om with purpose and intention, and not any expectation of, oh, wow, I'm going to have clairvoyance, I'm going to have all these other things, because all of us have that ability to create that, because we're all designed this way. We're all designed to communicate through vibration, sound, frequency, sensory abilities. Our third eye is very much part of this as well, as we're bringing in that energy. Start there, making the sounds at home a few minutes a day. That's how simple this is. And it's very organic, because like we said, we're born that way, we're developed that way.
And doesn't it clear the energy?
It will clear your energy.
Can you talk about the clearing of the energy? We've got a couple of minutes left, and I think I want to talk about this because we touched upon it, but we didn't close the loop on it. And the sounds that you mentioned, the vibration of them, there's something that happens in that space that allows for whatever is happening up there to be quiet enough for a moment to get the sacred message, right?
And that's where people would say it's really 4 steps, because when you complete your oming, there's a pause of stillness. So in that stillness, here's how I have practiced. I invoke the violet flame, and you can create your own decrees, or you can go look up decrees through various books or Saint Germain or the violet flame books, and just be drawn to what your intuition is calling you toward. Okay. I can just make suggestions for you. But there's that you're clearing your space vibrationally. You're calling in higher frequencies of light that match you, and just trust that it's going to match you exactly where you're at. And then as you go through your own practice, that stillness is so important, because even in the breath work, even if you just do the breathing, the 4-step breathing, and breathing in and the full exhale, and there's different practices. Some say breathe in for 4 seconds, some say breathe and then breathe out for 8, and there's stillness. It is in the stillness that all the magic happens.
Yeah.
Because that's when you've cleared your field energetically, emotionally, mentally, and physically. You're softened. You're not in a contracted state, and you're allowing that higher energy that you're divinely connected to all the time to come in more purely, without conflict, without anything in the way. And then you just sit and listen. This is the most powerful part of yoga. I can't remember the term at the end of the savasana, when you're laying there. This is when people fall asleep. It's because they're in those deeper states of healing. Their brain waves have shifted into higher brain waves. Some people will get into those delta waves. And that's the power of that stillness, because that's where everything's clearing and the clarity comes in, and then the message comes in.
Yeah, I love that we're talking about this, because I want to say to people that are listening, there are so many things available now. We've entered the digital world. Once upon a time, when I lived close to Green Lake here in Washington State, very close, a block away. I mean, for me, I would just go down to the park in the mornings, and there would be a group of people doing Qigong.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was at the time, but I watched them, and I watched the expression on their faces. And soon I realized that I could step into the group and I could learn it. Very few words said. First of all, the instructor or the group leader couldn't speak English very well, but you knew how to follow. But there was such a level of peace. Right now, Gina, there are so many ways for people, especially in this digital world. You talk about yoga. You can get yoga on your phone, on your TV. I mean, everywhere.
Yeah. What I encourage people to do is step away from the technology.
If we could step away.
Create the space to do it. There's times I take the dog out for a walk. I leave my phone at home, and that's creating the space. Yeah. And it's weird, because we're all so addicted to it. But if you can take your practice out into nature, like the Qigong, because then you are actually connecting to all that nature around you.
Yeah.
And even with the Om, and then you're igniting that invoking the violet flame, which is directly associated to your divine spark, because it's your heart flame and your blue flame, the will of God, that come together and create the violet fire, that cosmic fire.
Yeah, you touched upon something so important in your message, and that is, you're right about technology. I don't know about you, but I certainly don't go play table tennis with my phone in my hand, and I'm sure you don't play softball or soccer.
No, and it would be distracting, and it also takes our energy. It sucks our energy out. Like, there's so many times I can waste hours. I'm not kidding, hours going, checking things, reading, responding to content. And one of those things you can realize, all of us, and this is not just a Tony Robbins quote, this is in different scriptures, different spiritual leaders that you can find everywhere. And where your energy is focused, where your focus is, that's where your energy is going to go.
Yeah.
So if you also want to put your energy, like withdraw it, so will the other thing will lose, it'll disintegrate, right? Because it'll go dormant. So this goes with anything in life. If I'm having a lot of conflict, say with a sibling, and I keep going, The best way for me to not have conflict in that way is stop engaging the way I'm engaging and expecting something. And then that conflict dissipates. That violet flame energy comes in if I'm going from love and that divine will of God, and recognizing we are anchors of light. This is where I want to bring all this home, because I'm anchoring in the pure light while I'm still cleaning up my stuff, because you do both at the same time.
Yeah.
That raises me. It raises the person around me. It raises the planet. And remembering I'm in service for the planet, not the other way around. And that's a big thing to recognize, that as I'm becoming more solar powered, and so are you, our purpose here, walking on this planet that we're invited to live on, in this very specific time frame of deconstruction, of, what is it, Shiva cracking everything open.
Yeah.
How can I anchor light among the chaos of destruction that needs to happen so the new beginning to come through? Yeah. So keep it simple for yourself and allow that. When you create that quiet space of oming, fully connected, your pillar of light gets activated around you. And those of you that can see auras will see that ignite around somebody. The violet flame is also there, burning off anything that is misqualified or doesn't belong in that space. So you can bring in the purity of light. You can begin to hold higher frequencies of energy while experiencing the lower vibrations, because those are always going to be there, but we don't have to be those. We get to bring in the higher frequencies. And that's where I mean, you get to become an anchor for the light, because you are the light.
Wow. Thank you so much for this today. Gina, again, please tell people how they can find out more about you. Please tell them about what you're doing to help people in your coaching practice.
Yeah, you can again find me at soulinspiredreflections.com. And create a what I do one-on-one in a group class will be coming, is I assist people clear their blocks. And some people that are open to it, we bring in these components of Om and connecting to your higher self. But so, sometimes I can use this language, sometimes it'll show up differently, but that's what we work on is, okay, this is what's happening. Let's get the higher perspective. And what's your goal here? Where do you want to end up? And I bring it back into their body. What are you feeling? Because people have to learn how to understand and communicate with their body, and then make decisions that are now in an open state as they move in and out of contraction, right? And that to let go of the past. It can be complicated, but at the same time, we're going to keep it in the now moment. Where are you right now? And move from this present space forward. That way we're not holding back from our past, whether it's from a past experiences of joy or past experience of things that aren't so fun. It's the same thing. They both limit us. But when we can be in the now moment, and then here's my goal, here's where I want to get you to, I help guide you through that process and build your spiritual tool belt, if you will.
I love it. Please give out your website again. Thank you so much for everything, Gina.
Yeah, soulinspiredreflections.com.
Wow.
Look forward to hearing from any of you.
A lot of information in this show. And, if there's anything you really want to hold on to, go back and listen to what Gina said about the power we have in our voices, the power we have in the vibration we create, and know that not only can you anchor to the light, but you are the light. We'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Soul Inspired Reflections, Ascension, a humble awakening of the heart, with me, your host, Gina Lobito. Join me again every second Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com to continue to activate the spirit within you and trust your inner guidance. Learn about what it means to embody and how you can exist in transcendent service to ascension of life, the planet, and the universe. For more information, go to soulinspired.org. That's soul-inspired.org.